You're likely here since you're a fan of watches. Perhaps this is your first exposure to Ciga design and their eye-catching creations, or you're researching which one to buy in their extremely good value sale from 10th to the 19th of August 2023, or you're simply curious to watch another review on this model. For whatever reason you're here, I would like to discuss the term Chinese watches today. In a lot of watch forums, the term cheap Chinese watch or AliExpress watch is used as a derogatory term, and whilst there definitely are plenty of outright copies, dubious homages, or even cheap, nasty garbage watches produced out of China, let's remember that every product is built to spec by whoever ordered said product. You might be watching this on the latest Apple or Android device, and the vast majority of them are stunningly engineered and built to demanding specs that very few factories in the world could have achieved. And you know what? Very likely to have been built in China. Would you call the latest iPhone a cheap Chinese phone? Probably not, I'd say. If you really want to get into the nitty-gritty details, when you start investigating what made in Switzerland or made in Germany actually means, it becomes clear that a certain percentage has to indeed be made in the country of origin, but it's a poorly hidden secret that many parts are imported from China by many mid-range and even prestigious brands. They do that since the combination of quality and price is unbeatable. If you then bring up poor working conditions or big factories of soulless drones, then watch my interview with Carl from Stratton, where he talks about getting to know the factory owner and his family, and he also details his long-standing relationship with this person that he now calls his friend. Why is this applicable to Ciga design then? Well, these are very well-engineered watches from a Chinese brand, and they are worthy of our respect. Many of their watches have won various awards. Take the Blue Planet model for instance, that I reviewed previously. That model won a prestigious award out of Geneva in some very good company. So if you like what you see here or on their website directly, there is no reason to hide that or feel like you're compromising because you don't have a Swiss, German or Japanese made watch on your wrist. The very fact that they are also such good value is yet another reason to consider your very own Ciga design watch. The one I have in for review today, which full disclosure was sent to me by Ciga since they liked my Blue Planet review, I don't have to send back. It's the Titanium Z model and it's been fun to film out and about, since it's not normally a shape that I would be that interested in. It makes it extra fun for me to play with. Should you consider buying one? Well, let me help you decide. If you've seen this shape before, it may have been on the wrist of Rafael Nadal and his Richard Mille watches. The RM27-04 manual wound tourbillon that Nadal wore at the 2023 Australian Open was rumoured to cost around $1 million, and is now closer to $2.5 million on the grey market. But even the cheapest run-of-the-mill Richard Mille watch on Chrono24 today starts at 330,000 Australian dollars. Now, I'm not suggesting that the Z is completely equivalent, but at around 600 Australian dollars, it costs 0.2% of the cheapest second-hand Richard Mille. So if you like that shape and a see-through design, here's a good place to start. And the packaging is far more interesting, I can say from first-hand experience, with the Richard Mille day of filming a few years ago. But let's talk sizes. The diameter of the Z is 41mm, not including the crown. I measure lug to lug at 48mm and thickness at 12.3mm. The lug width is 22mm and the weight on the silicone strap is 50 grams all up. The water resistance is 30 meters, so it's enough to not worry you too much on a rainy day. Getting closer to the dial movement, should it have been left on a desk for a while, a few turns on the crown will have you notice immediately that the watch is running, and all the many intricate parts of the watch movement is there for you to see. If this is yours or someone else's first Skeletonised watch, you're in for a real treat here. When setting the movement, it's quite obvious what the function, often described as hacking, as in stopping the movement for exact time, actually looks like, since you can see exactly what happens when you do pull the crown. Around the edges of the dial, you'll see minute markers and even slightly larger markers for each hour. Are they the most legible? No, but it's a nice touch. The skeletonized hands managed to stick out with their red tips and even a little bit of lume applied. One neat feature is that the minute hand perfectly frames the Ciga in the Ciga design logo that's this at the 3 position. Overall, one could almost imagine this watch as a fixed desk ornament. It's nice to look at and get lost in so many fun details that thanks to the hollowed out and highly reduced baseplate are easy to see. The curved sapphire glass that covers the dial can reflect in unusual ways due to its shape, so by its very nature you can angle the watch even in direct sunlight to tell the time. I don't think there's much AR coating here, but it's not been a problem so far for me. The case is highly ornate with hexagon screws fixed into what almost looks like shields on either side of the case. The crown is signed, and you can also see a small red detail between the crown and the shield. The crown guards almost look like chronograph buttons, but they are just there to protect the crown. Speaking of the crown, it's small and fiddly to wind, so it's lucky then that this is an automatic movement. If it was hand wound, I would be cursing it every 2 days. On the opposite side, we get a very shouty Ciga design word mark. That would normally be cause for concern, but let's be honest, this is not a discreet little shrinking violet of the watch. Would I prefer it not to be there? For me, yes, but in context with the overall design, I get it. Normally when we turn a watch over, that's where we see the movement. But this seagull automatic movement is pretty much just showing off a highly skeletonized rotor that is curiously not signed. Not that it needs it, we already saw the side of the case now, didn't we? The power reserve of this one is 40 hours and is rated to -15 to +30 seconds per day. It's a fairly quiet movement and this rotor is unlikely to bother you on your wrist, as in you will likely never feel it spinning. Both the strap options included are pretty good, particularly the silicone one, which is signed and has a pretty cool pattern, but it doesn't taper, which makes it rather large. The leather one with its stamped crocodile pattern is okay, not amazing, but what do you expect really for such a reasonable asking price? That one tapers from 22 down to 19, which makes it easier to wear. I've been filming it in the outdoor shots on an Artem 22mm canvas strap, which I'll link up here. A slightly thicker strap works well with the watch, I think. The lume is simply applied to the hour and minute hand. It would have been nice to have some on the 12 mark perhaps as well, but there's not a lot of space, so it's understandable. So this is not a style of watch that I would normally wear, but I can appreciate it all the same. Skeletonized watches are not easy to find anywhere near this price point, let alone 2 or 3 times that. The closest I had come to something that I did commit to was the Day 41 watch from Code 41, but even that required a serious commitment of around $1,500. This is more like a third of that. If you have made it this far into my review, you're probably curious and even a little tempted to pull the trigger. If you do, I doubt you'd be disappointed. Dressing it up with a nicer strap will get you a conversation piece in the office, and the titanium frame on this particular model, to be clear they come in steel also, means it's light on your wrist and easy on the skin. I don't consider myself a brand snob, and I'd wear anything that looks good and has been made to spec by a designer with a vision that extended past outright copying something else. Sure, it is reminiscent of a Richard Mille, but that's a watch that is so incredibly far from reach, whilst the Ciga set is attainable for us, mere mortals. So if you're looking for a fun and unusual watch and have somehow not come across this brand and watch before, then I have no hesitation in advising you to get your own, and you may as well take advantage of the sale if it's still going when you watch this. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.